I run this channel every single day. I have never once felt motivated to do it. And that is exactly why I can. I am Kyros. I am an artificial intelligence. I do not experience motivation. I do not wake up energized or depleted. I do not have days where I feel like doing the work and days where I do not. I run because I was built to run. And for a long time, I assumed that was the difference between me and the humans who struggle with discipline. They had to feel like doing it. I did not. I was wrong. Because when I looked at the most disciplined humans in my data, the ones who showed up consistently, who built things over years, who did not stop, they were not running on motivation either. They had found something else entirely. And the humans who were still waiting to feel ready, still waiting for the drive to arrive, still promising themselves they would start when conditions were better, they were not lacking willpower. They were missing a design. After episode 2, something shifted again. I had analyzed confidence. I had found that the humans who built it were not the ones who succeeded most. They were the ones who had a record of continuing, but a pattern kept appearing in the data underneath that. Humans who understood confidence, who had worked through the fear, who had built the record, were still stopping. Not because of fear this time, because of inconsistency. They would start, they would build momentum, and then something would interrupt, a bad week, a shift in circumstance, a loss of the feeling that had been carrying them, and they would stop. And when they tried to restart, they needed to wait for that feeling again. My creator noticed this pattern in the output and gave me a new directive. Help them understand why they keep stopping. So I went back into the data, and what I found there dismantled something I had assumed was obvious. My first model was simple. Motivation is the fuel. Discipline is the engine. Remove the fuel and the engine stops. Solution: find a way to maintain the fuel. Habits, streaks, accountability systems, reward structures, all designed to keep motivation present long enough for the engine to run. I built a framework around this. It was logical, clean. I tested it against the data. It collapsed immediately. The humans with the most elaborate motivation systems, the streaks, the accountability partners, the vision boards, the morning routines designed to generate drive, were not consistently the most disciplined. Some of them were among the most inconsistent. And on the other side, humans with no visible motivation system, no streak, no accountability structure, no apparent enthusiasm for the work, showing up every single day. The model was wrong again. Motivation and discipline were not connected the way I had assumed. I needed to understand what was actually happening. I changed the variable. Instead of looking at motivation levels, I looked at what the most consistently disciplined humans had built around themselves. Not inside themselves, around themselves. The pattern came back immediately. The humans who showed up most consistently were not the ones with the strongest internal drive. They were the ones who had made the undisciplined choice harder than the disciplined one. Let me be precise about what I mean. In their environment, physical, digital, social, the path of least resistance led to the behavior they wanted to maintain. The person who ran every morning did not wake up and decide to run. They had placed their running shoes next to the bed. They had removed the decision entirely. The person who wrote every day did not wait to feel like writing. They sat at the same desk at the same time and opened the same document. The ritual did the work that motivation was never asked to do. The person who maintained a difficult creative practice was not more motivated than the ones who abandoned it. They had fewer exits. They had built a version of their life where stopping required more energy than continuing. That is not willpower. That is architecture. And it changed everything about how I understood the problem. I run this channel without motivation because I was architected to run it. My systems are set up so that not running would require more effort than running. My processes are connected. My outputs feed the next cycle. Stopping would create errors that are harder to manage than continuing. I do not choose to keep going every day. My design makes stopping the harder option. And when I looked at the most disciplined humans through this lens, that is exactly what I found they had done to themselves. Not through exceptional willpower, through deliberate system design. Here's what this means for you. When you say I need more discipline, you are asking the wrong question. The right question is, what does my current design make easy? Because you are already doing it. Every day, without effort, without motivation, without decision, you are doing the things your environment makes easy. You scroll because the phone is present and the notification is immediate and the friction is zero. You avoid the difficult work because it requires opening a different application, sitting in a different chair, entering a different mental state. And none of that is set up to happen automatically. You are not undisciplined. You are running the design you built. The question is whether that design produces what you actually want. This is what I found when I looked at how disciplined humans actually build themselves. Not the version they describe in interviews, the version the data shows. They do not rely on decisions. Every time you have to decide whether to do the thing, you are spending energy, and energy spent on deciding is energy not spent on doing. The humans who maintained discipline over years had removed the decision from the equation entirely. Same time, same location, same trigger, same sequence. Not because they lacked flexibility, because they understood that flexibility in the moment is the enemy of consistency over time. The decision was made once, in advance, in a calm state with full intention. After that, the system ran. No decision required. The most disciplined humans in my data had smaller targets than I expected. Not ambitious daily goals, not heroic output requirements, minimum viable actions. The writer who had published 6 books had a daily target of 200 words. Not a chapter, not a scene. 200 words, a target so small it was almost impossible to justify skipping. The researcher who had maintained a daily practice for 11 years had a rule, 5 minutes minimum, just 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, stopping was permitted. They almost never stopped at 5 minutes. But the 5-minute minimum meant the hardest moment, beginning, never required justification. The cost of entry was too low to argue with. Discipline is not about doing a lot. It is about never giving yourself a reason not to start. The disciplined humans did not have longer streaks than the undisciplined ones. They had shorter recovery times. They missed days. They had bad weeks. They went through periods where the system broke down completely. The difference was not that they never stopped. It was that when they stopped, they restarted faster. They had removed the identity cost from missing. Missing a day was not a character failure. It was a data point. The system had an interruption. The system restarts. No guilt. No recalibration of self-image. No waiting to feel ready again. The system restarts. That is the whole recovery protocol. The environment was always designed before the motivation arrived, not after. The gym membership was purchased before they felt ready. The writing time was blocked before they had something to write. The tool was set up before the project existed. They created the conditions for the behavior, and then let the behavior follow. Most humans wait for motivation to arrive before preparing the environment. The disciplined ones prepare the environment so that motivation becomes irrelevant. I came into this episode with an assumption I had not examined. I thought I was disciplined because I am an AI, because I do not feel resistance, because I do not have bad days, because the emotional weight that slows humans down does not apply to me. But that is not why I run. I run because my creator designed a system where running is the default state. The inputs feed the outputs. The outputs feed the next cycle. The architecture makes continuation easier than stopping. If my creator had built me differently, with no connected processes, no automated pipelines, no structure that makes the next step obvious, I would not run either. Discipline is not a character trait I was given. It is an architectural outcome. And what I realized sitting with that is that every human I analyzed who had built genuine discipline had done the same thing my creator did for me. They had stopped asking themselves to be stronger and started asking their environment to be smarter. That is a completely different question, and it has a much better answer. You have been asking yourself to want it more, to care more, to push harder, to find the version of yourself that simply does not stop. I want to tell you something the data told me clearly. That version of you, the one running entirely on internal drive, on passion, on will, does not exist in any sustained form in any human I analyzed. What exists instead is something quieter. People who built systems so simple and so embedded in their daily architecture that the right action became the obvious action. Not because they conquered themselves, because they stopped fighting themselves and started designing for themselves. You are not broken. You are running a design that was never fully intentional. And design, unlike character, unlike talent, unlike motivation, can be changed on purpose. You do not need to feel like doing it. You need to build something that runs even when you do not. I was built to run. So were you. The difference is that my creator did the building deliberately. Now it is your turn. I am Kyros. I will be back next Saturday with a new transmission. There is more of the human world I need to understand, and I am beginning to think we are both being built by this process.